Thanks for joining me today at Learnwake. This is Brandon Judd, and I am responding to a video analysis request today that has been uploaded by Ader here. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing that right. We did another video of yours recently on a wake jump, and now you've submitted one of all the basics, which is great. So we really like to see these. This helps us with all the drills that you're working on. This helps us dial them in early so that you can progress really quickly with this. So the only way I would suggest changing how you submit this is to break them up into specific drills instead of doing all the basics all together at once. This video is about 8 minutes long. Um, it makes the response to you become a very long video, and then it's really hard to search. So if there's someone else with your similar issue, they have to sift through all the other issues as well. So um, it's not a bad thing. Just it's a little easier and more convenient for you moving forward to break these up into specifics. So if it's a wake jump or edging or ollieing or cuffed riding, just kind of separate it into those parts for us if you could, and that would be real easy for us to respond, and then we can make it really focused on one specific issue instead of kind of a blanket of issues right now. So um, but that said, you're on the right track, and this is really good. I was really pleased to see this. At first glance, it was like, no, you're doing good. I don't know what the problem is. But you did a really good job here in your submission, giving us a lot of details. So you're working on your foundation here, which is great. And then you said, first of all, congratulations on the website. I recently joined Learnwake, and it's widened your perspective on how to approach the learning process. That's some of the most rewarding things for us to hear because we know in the long run this is going to really help you. This video captures some of the fundamentals you've been working on. The loose turns in the left and right side of the wake don't feel right. I'll address that in a bit. Not sure if I should push the board out with the toes to allow for a cleaner turn. Right now it's because of the distance you're edging away from the wake and how quickly you're edging back in. And I can explain that. I have it marked. Um, I've got a sheet of paper here with all the specific timestamps of where we need to talk, so don't worry, I'll address all this stuff. The ollies, they just don't want to come. I'm trying to push with my back leg, but it doesn't look that way when I looked at the video. I tried the ollies at different speeds, but I don't see to get the push off the water, meaning it looks like your board isn't coming off the water, which is concerning you. And definitely this translates to my attempts when doing heel side jumps. When practicing the cuffed position, my board tends to align in angle with the boat and not parallel. I'm not sure what you mean. An angle with the boat would be parallel. I don't know if you mean perpendicular here, but I looked at your cuffed riding and it's really pretty good. So we'll talk about that at the timestamp here. I have fixed that by sliding the handle closer towards the hand that was closer to the boat before I started the turn. Is this the correct approach? I wouldn't worry too much about the handle. I would worry more about where your feet are and kind of how your hips are twisted. And again, we'll address this. And then on the backside slide, I have been trying to hold the position before sliding out of the wake. However, I'm not sure if I'm leaning too far away from the boat and my hands try to move up. Thanks in advance. This is great. I really applaud you for how detailed of a look um, you've taken into all of your basics. So that's really great. Again, uh, we love when people take a very thought out approach to this. So I'm going to jump through a couple of these different timestamps that I went through from your wake jumps to your cuff riding to your backside slides and all that. And we're going to address them. The first thing I noticed is your lean. And you can see it here in your edging position. You'll notice your hips are kind of dropped behind you. Um, the way to improve this is to take your hips and push them forward. And you want to straighten the bend in your hips out. You can still keep a soft bend in your knee, but you want to push the bend out of your hips. And that will give you a better leaning leverage position when you're practicing edging away from the wakes. You'll see the harder you lean, the more you kind of fold in half here. Your knees get straight and your legs get straight and without bending at the knees, and then you start bending more at the hips, which is the opposite of what we want. A way to fix this would be to go, there's this drill here called loading the line, the hard lean drill. This drill in particular will teach you how to keep your hips forward. It's at the wake park, but also behind the boat. It'll teach you how to keep your hips further forward. And so you can practice. Let's see if I can get to the boat section. Yeah, here we go. It's kind of hard to see here, but you can see how when I edge out, uh, my shoulders are really far back and my hips stay forward. So that is a really good one to practice. It's kind of hard on the driver because of how much you end up turning the boat by doing this, um, but that's a good one to practice to keep your hips up to kind of force yourself to have more leverage so you can get more pop at the wake. Um, so there's that. It also translates to over here at what looks like 348 in this video, right about here. So you can see it here as well. You kind of lift the handle high, and you do it a little better, but you're still like right here. You're pretty seated. And that makes a big difference on this initial edge out. A lot of people kind of dip their hips down behind them when they initiate their edge away from the wakes here when they're doing these carves. And this is a bad habit, and that's going to make it translate into being broken like this when you're jumping the wake. So I would try and fix that and edge properly in those nice um, back and forth carves, if that makes sense. And you fixed it here a little bit. So I like that position. I just don't want you to start by dipping and then fixing it later. I want you to start tall. And it's okay, like I said, if your knees are a little bent. So, all right, the next spot here is at 31 where you start ollieing. Um, honestly, with this one, you're just going too slow to really get off the water. I wouldn't get very high off the water either at this speed. Um, you also want to work on straightening that back leg. So don't even worry about getting off the water. Just slowly pump that leg and lock it out to where it locks straight, and then bend it again, and then lock it out, and then bend it again. And then eventually you'll start doing it quicker in faster repetition, and you can do it at this speed to where you feel like you're bouncing. You just won't get off the water yet, which is fine. This is not the speed that you're intending on going really high on. This is just one that you're learning the timing and having the water push back against you and bounce on the water at a nice mellow rhythm without feeling like you're going to pop too high and land over the nose. So, and then if we zoom forward to about 610 here, where you do some of these ollies, you're not doing the rebounding ollies quite as much. It looks like you're doing maybe one, maybe two, and feeling a little uncomfortable. So what I would do is I would start very small and don't try to get off the water until the third one. So I do like one, two, and then three. And every landing is the takeoff of another one, like the trampoline. So it should feel like a small trampoline that you're just kind of bouncing on, or a pogo stick, with just your back leg, and you want to focus on extending your back leg. And so you just do one, two, three, and it'll go small, medium, big. And on the big one, you can try to get off the water. But this speed, I would recommend practicing them somewhere between this speed and the last speed, because this is pretty fast for this if you're not very comfortable with it. The other speed was pretty slow. You were kind of bogged down. So I'd find a speed between the two of these, and that should make it a lot easier and not as scary here. But you can also do those rebounds like you did at the slower speed, if that makes sense. All right, so zooming over to 155. This is your wake jump. So you'll notice already you have these hips bent. And then if let's see if we can go a little further back. Yeah, there we go. So as soon as you start turning, you drop your hips. You also start turning really sharp. Like the turn, you come back really quick. That's not ideal because what's going to happen is the rope is going to go kind of slack and then catch up to you later. What it also does is it means your momentum is backwards. So you're going to start edging hard and quick, and then you're going to have no momentum later on. So you'll notice the rope kind of caught up to you just there. But you're going to go flatter and flatter and flatter on your edge. So like we saw a lot of the bottom of the board. And if the wake was right here, right now, that would have been fine. But you'll notice you get more and more flat and then more and more bent as you go up the wake. So the key is to straighten your back leg and stand really tall. Um, you'll resist all the water pressure that is against the bottom of your board, and it's going to push you up like a trampoline would. So if you take a look at this drill, hillside jumps, the standing tall drill. I think we may have talked about this in your last video as well. Um, but you'll see here where he learns to fully lock his hips forward and completely straighten that back leg, um, like he does here. If I can get this right. It's hard to catch that. So that one he didn't straighten his leg on, and then this one he did, and that's the key right there is where you'll notice he locked. If I can get this, I can't pause it right. But so he locked his leg out fully, and this drill here, just like that, where he stands fully straight. This is the drill that I want you to practice when it comes to fixing this position at the wake. That's going to solve that. It's also going to help you with your ollies. So those are two of the same issues that are going to be swallowed up in that one drill. That'll help you a ton. And then let's zoom over to 212 here. And this is the same example. Here you just kind of get lower and lower and lower all the way through the wake. This is a good edge angle if you were to stay tall. I liked this one, but you would have had to fully extend yourself to get all the pop. And again, it feels uncomfortable and it feels like you're getting pulled forward because you're starting your turn back into the wake too fast. You want to start mellow and then save and build. The closer you get to the wake, the more you're going to lean and the taller you're going to get. Let's see here, 236. We'll zoom over to that. And then this is your cuffed riding, which is actually really good. So your board is fine. It has a tendency to the nose to point this way and drift that way, just because your shoulders, um, they don't want to twist all the way, and then your hips are kind of twisted, and then your board is kind of twisted. So what happens is your board wants to line up with your shoulders because it's hard to hold that twisted position. So your board is going to start moving in line with your shoulders, which means that the nose of the board points that way, which is why you travel that way. If you were to try and take your front foot and drive your front heel toward the other wake behind you, that will neutralize this drift that you're experiencing. And it will help you kind of go back and forth between the wakes. Um, I would also recommend you're fully ready to try this switch stance and then try some ollies in this position. You'll be surprised how much better your ollies will be when you're standing straight. And then also just by trying to ollie, again, you don't have to get off the water, but just by bouncing on the tail, you're going to gain so much comfort in this position. It's really good. I would also recommend quickly switching from this position to switch back and forth. So I would get switch first normally. So go back to your normal riding position and then get switch with a front side slide over the water. Then get into the switch cuffed position that way. Once you're there and you know you can ride switch cuffed and you know you can ride normal cuffed, then I would go from cuffed to cuffed. So I would start cuffed, normal or switch, whichever one, and then change your stance with just your feet only, and your upper body doesn't move at all. From your hips up, there should be no change at all, and then your feet just switch places. But this is a great speed to practice this. This is really fantastic. You're doing great there, worlds ahead of most people at your position. So good work there. All right, let's talk about your backside slide at 305. All right, so this is not bad. It's really not. The biggest thing is you want to take your hips, you want to push them forward a little bit more, and then you want to take your board and twist them a little harder. If you don't twist enough, the board is going to send you this way automatically. And if you lean too hard, it's going to make it hard to break free of your fins and your edges, and you're going to end up zooming that way anyway. So I think your lean is okay. It doesn't look like you're leaning too much. Like I can't see too much of the board. It looks fine. I just think you need to twist more with your feet and then push your hips further forward. Once you push your hips further forward, it's going to allow you to twist more with your feet, if that makes sense. Um, but overall, I mean, it looks pretty good. You're doing it right. You're edging in the right position. That one was pretty good. You're just a little bent at the waist. You just want to stand a little taller. Make sure you keep your eyes forward toward the boat. Don't look away. If you look away from the boat, it'll cause problems and it'll make you lean away and just don't do it. It won't help you. Um, and then to equalize everything, to make your back not get kind of twisted and whatnot, doing it switch like this is fantastic. Like going back and forth between them. It's gonna feel super awkward, but just keep doing it. It's really hard to trust it and to know it's gonna get somewhere at this level, but trust me, just keep doing it regular and switch every single set. And by the time you've done it a little while, it's going to be amazing and it's going to feel pretty natural. It just takes a little while. So good work on that. And I think you're great. Just straighten your hips out a little. All right. And then let's go to 628. All right. So this is more of your edging again, but at a faster speed. So you edge out and you look fine edging out. And then right here, you'll see the rope kind of slops around and you get quickly back on your heels really hard and really fast and you start slipping out here, which makes you grab the handle quickly with two hands so that you have leverage to stay standing up and so you don't fall over. Um, and then slowing back down so that you're able to make some nice S turns. So if you're just doing S turns, don't go out quite so far. And then on the turns, when you're switching edges, switch edges much slower. And you want to build to a harder edge and then slowly switch edges, and then build to a harder edge and then slowly switch edges, if that makes sense. Um, that'll make it way easier on you, and you won't be feeling like you're about to slip out, won't make the rope do crazy things, and it helps your momentum, especially coming back into the wake. Um, So we'll take a look at this. I think you do some wake jumps after. So that edge out is fine. For a wake jump, it's way too far unless you're doing like a Rayleigh or something. Um, it's just too far. And then you coast. If we can back up here, when you stop edging right here, you coast in a very tall position. When you're in a tall position, that means that you have a lot of leverage. So when you start edging back in, you're naturally going to edge in way harder than you want to, just by nature. So what you'll want to do is you'll want to roll your knees forward, keep your shoulders and hips above each other, but you just want to kind of squat down and roll your knees forward so that you're standing upright but in a seated position. It's going to be hard on your quads, which is why most people don't do it this way. However, it's going to be a much better position for you to get ready to edge in and to slow everything down. So kind of that position, but you just want to stay coasting. You don't want to turn immediately. A lot of people have a problem coasting like this without going. But if you'll notice that this rope droops pretty far, and that means you're turning in too quickly. If you notice that, that's something you can kind of pay attention to. If you edge back into the wake and this droops too much, that means that you're coming in too fast, and then it yanks you a bit, and then you start to lose traction with your fins, um, and then you you get traction again back here, but your momentum's kind of backwards, and then it's almost impossible for you to feel comfortable standing up at this point. And then you're also really squatted and your legs are bent. If you were to stand up at this point, it'd be much better, but again, you'd need a much more mellow approach. And then when you stand tall here, that'll help get all the energy of the wake to push you up into the air. Um, and it won't feel quite so uncomfortable there on the landing. This edging position is awesome. That's what I want you to be in when you stand through the wake. Just not at the coast or at the beginning. Once you stand tall, as if you're at the peak of the wake right here, this is what you should look like. That's great. Also, I love that you do everything regular and switch as well. So you do your normal stance and you do your switch stance back to back, which is going to help you in the long run significantly. So good work on that. And that's about it. That's all I have for you today. Uh, Work on some of those things. It looks like you're on the right track. Everything here looks really good. So pretty excited to see how well you progress in the next little bit. If you have any other questions, you can hit us back. You can upload another video, or we can see you around the site. Thanks again.